Welcome to Mental Health Momentum, a Silicon Slopes podcast. I'm Dr. David Morgan. I'm a licensed psychologist and the Director of Mental Health Awareness here at Silicon Slopes. And on this podcast, we talk about mental health issues in business and beyond, and we look for solutions. And I'd like to introduce my guest to you today, James Keddington. Hello, James.
Hi.
James, Jim?
James.
James. Excellent. Let me tell you a little bit about James. James is an advocate for healthy workplaces. After spending over 20 years as an in-house and agency marketer, James suffered a number of health setbacks, both seen and unseen. In what felt like a life or death moment, James made a decision to live life to the fullest. The process that ensued thereafter included becoming a graduate from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. It was there he learned how interconnected every aspect of health was and how the workplace can create better human beings or leave them as collateral damage in the pursuit of the American dream. I love that. Speed bumps, right? On our way to to getting more. I love your emphasis on healthy workplaces. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But I'm just curious about your own experience. You mentioned before the podcast, you said, I'm an open book. So here you go. You're going to hear all of James here right now.
If you want to, here I am.
So just tell me just about your interest in mental health. Like, why does this? Because I was so appreciative of you to come on the podcast. You were very eager to come. So tell me about that.
We all have mental health stuff, whether it be voices in our head telling us, hey, you're not good enough, right, or things that are serious like suicide ideation, right? So we all have something that we're trying to grow beyond. And for me, as my health was declining, one, I wasn't acknowledging it too, but two, I felt like the things that I was experiencing were too small to talk about.
This is your physical health declining?
Well, this was my mental health.
Okay.
Like both things were declining simultaneously,
okay,
but I think there's a connection there. But on the mental health side, like, oh, this is too small to talk about. Other people are dealing with much bigger things. I don't want to come across as like whining or look at me or mine's, drawing attention away from things that mattered more, right? But as a result, if you don't have the tools to address things, they get worse. And then they spiral out of control. And then next thing you know, you've been thinking about taking your life for a couple of years.
Right.
And that's a bad place to live.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. I know what you're saying, because I think that's a very common perception of people, is that they think, well, other people do have it worse, which is true. There's, those of us that live here in Utah or Salt Lake County or Davis County or something, I mean, most of us enjoy amazing benefits and a great quality of life. And there are a lot of people that have it worse, but that doesn't mean that what you're going through is inconsequential or doesn't need to be addressed. And so I think that there's, we need to kind of change our thinking a little bit on that and just say, it's okay to raise your hand and say, I'm struggling with something. Yes, it's smaller than what other people are struggling with, but I'm still struggling and I need some help.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Just speaking up, you never know.
So why did you speak up? Like when you were in your struggles, what finally got you to the point?
I speak up because I know a lot of people are afraid to. I remember being there, and if they maybe hear my story and know that I'm talking about it, maybe they'll have the courage to say, I need help, before they get to a place as dark as I was at.
Right. So, and when you were in that dark place, where did you find the strength to speak up? Like, what happened? Did someone come rescue you? Did you speak up and ask for help?
Well, for me, it was probably on the physical health side where I decided to take action. I had gotten sick. I was way overweight. I knew I needed to lose weight. I'd been thinking about it. I wasn't sleeping much. My sleep tracker was saying I was getting like 30 minutes a night of sleep. And I got pneumonia really bad. I couldn't shake it. At the same time, I was helping my mom with some things. She had dementia and her memory was bad. And there was a moment where I was talking with my siblings, trying to figure out some things for my mom. And I was like, I'm worse than my mom in terms of my physical health and my brain health. And she's got dementia. That's a problem.
Yeah.
When I started taking care of those things to be better than my mid-70s mom, when I was in my, much younger than her, obviously, my mental health started improving. There's this correlation here.
Yes. It's such an interesting observation, and it's absolutely right, because our mental health and our physical health are definitely connected, and it's not a one-way street. It goes both ways, because some people might say, well, I don't want to go to counseling. I'm embarrassed to talk about this. I totally get that. I think the stigma is decreasing, but it's still there. But you could do other things. You could do something to improve your physical health, which they're not going to be nearly as embarrassed about, right? As getting a gym membership or going for a mile walk every day or something like that. And that is going to have an effect on the mental health.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so I think that's part of the good news, is that anything you do to improve your circumstance is going to have kind of this ripple effect throughout all these other aspects of your well-being.
Absolutely. It's incredible. Like, we are one being.
Right.
And it doesn't matter, like the rising tide lifts all boats type
Exactly.
of thing.
Yes.
It's the same thing with our health, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, your brain health. I separate brain health from mental and physical because I feel like it's its own thing.
Sure. Yeah.
It controls so much that if you ignore what's going on, so if you hear me say brain health, that's why I think it's its own little system, which it is.
It is for sure. And we're learning so much more about that. Just in terms of the relative presence or absence of different chemicals in our brain and what we can do to increase those or decrease the ones that shouldn't be there quite as much. Yeah. Brain health is significant, but all of it's interconnected.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's one of the things oftentimes I get frustrated when I hear people talk about. Just the other day, someone was saying they were complaining about how they weren't good at cleaning their house.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a sibling who was very good at cleaning her house. And they said, well, I just didn't get the house cleaning gene. And I thought, oh, come on. What are you talking about? Like, you're trying to tell me that there's something genetic in you that makes you so that you can't clean your house very well. Now, I get that we all come predisposed with different, advantages and disadvantages, but sometimes we lean so heavily on this and saying, well, that's just not part of me. That's just not in me. We can be different people. From compared to where you were when you decided that you needed to change, you're a totally different person now.
Yeah. It's like a 180.
Yeah, exactly. Notwithstanding any sort of predispositions or genetics or anything like that, you've made those changes, which has literally changed the course of your life. So I love that. Change is totally possible, regardless of the circumstance.
And age and timing and
Exactly.
where you live and who your parents were.
Yeah. So you went from being a marketing executive to getting into coaching. So why this shift? Why did you do that?
I shifted primarily because, one, there's something new there. So in between the marketing and the health coaching, there was a whole transition. I was doing overhead garage shelving. Like, I left marketing. I didn't know what needed to be done. My wife was like, hey, this guy's been doing this stuff. I think if you build him a website, he'll teach you how to do it. I'm like, okay, whatever. I think sometimes our spouses know what we need, and
Right.
my wife has figured out how to prompt me without me knowing she's telling me what to do,
Okay.
right? So I ended up doing a lot of physical labor and by myself, and it gave me a lot of time to think about what was going on. And I realized on the mental health side, part of it was from a bad layoff. And so when I watch layoffs now, like, it's hard for me I know what some people are going through, especially when we have so many great companies here, because for me, this is where my lack of sleep kind of kicked in, is I was having nightmares every night or at least once a week for 2.5 years about being let go. And I'm realizing, I've realized through my own therapy and learning that this was trauma.
Right.
And the trauma was probably related to grief, just like when you lose a loved one.
Right.
You have that connection that is no longer there. And so for me, the coaching came into that once I realized how all these things are connected. I was like, wow, if I had known that exercise or a diet choice or just journaling or mindful practices could have helped me manage that better, all the jobs I got after that one where I got laid off, I would have been a much better employee. I would have been a much better husband and father when I came home. I would have been better at everything I did. But instead, because I didn't know how to respond to those negative events, because I wasn't taught how or I wasn't prepared, whatever it was, my choices led me down paths that were more like a resentful or vengeful, or I'm going to leave before they can let me go and they'll miss me and they'll regret that I didn't stay. It became, instead of like that, oh, don't break up with me, I'll break up with you type thing, right? And so once I learned, like, hey, there's better ways to do this. I couldn't be the only one blind
Right.
to this.
Right.
Let's show other people that there's better ways to do this.
Share what you learned with others.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, and I like that as well because it has there's that personal aspect to it as well, right? You can say, I've been through this, I've experienced this, and so that's how I can kind of show you the way forward. So,
yeah.
Tell me about this, because then especially here in the Silicon Slopes area in Utah, there's just this grind culture where you just have to work. I was just talking with someone this morning about this, and this belief that if you take any time off for yourself or for someone else, then that's just missed opportunity. That is putting you one step behind in terms of your growth. Do you have thoughts about that in terms of, like, if there's any young entrepreneurs out there who just worked 90 hours this last week?
Yeah, I've got some pretty opinionated thoughts on it. I will not give my first reaction to that, but I will say the grind culture, in some ways, I think it's healthy. In some ways, I think it's completely destructive. And the grind culture is not new. I remember in early 2000s when I started my career, reading an article in Inc. magazine. A tech founder was bragging about all the hours he worked, and people calling sick. He's like, well, what level pneumonia? Because only level 3 can kill you. Right. And I remember with my coworkers bragging about how many all-nighters we worked for somebody else. Right. Not even for our own. Like, my paycheck did not change. Exactly. But yet here I am, like, yeah, I did 4 all-nighters this month.
Right.
And, Dr. Gupta calls like the dementia and Alzheimer's is a disease we get in our 20s and 30s from lack of sleep. So
it's just kind of getting set up for later.
Right. Yeah. So my response to like the grind culture question is, could you imagine BYU? They've just got this new basketball recruit. I'm not a big basketball fan, but I've seen the news, so I forget his name. I apologize to all the BYU fans out there. But could you imagine if he like rolled his ankle in a game, and instead of icing it, they said, "You're lazy. Why aren't you running up and down the court? We need another 40 points out of you this game." And he's like, "Dude, I just rolled it." And like that would never happen. These professional sports teams, they will sign people on and they give them a nice paycheck, but they also give them mental health coaching. They give them sports psychology. They give them all the biometric scanning. They give them specialized coaching. Why? Because they're assets.
Yeah.
But in the workplace, we say, oh, cool. We're going to give you caffeinated drinks that will deplete your brain capacity and cause inflammation. We're going to give you junk food, high fructose corn syrup snacks that make it so your body can't work right, so you can't sleep well at night. And we're going to ask you to work 18-hour days. And then 3 years down the road, you're like, you're just not cut out for this job. You don't belong here. You're not a performer. We thought you were a performer. Right. You're a loser now. And then people are like, wait, I gave you everything I had. I almost died for you. I'm like, well, you're just not good enough. But who's the one who created that?
Right.
The company did. The culture did, right? So, yeah, I've got some opinions on grind culture. I do like the fact, part of the grind culture, though, of pushing yourself and doing new hard things.
Striving for excellence.
And striving for excellence and measuring output and saying, how can I get from here to there when I don't believe I can?
Right.
I think there's some good exercises in that. But in the absence of investing in the capacity to grow, you are destroying people.
I love that. That's such a great description of that. That if it's a growth mindset, like I said, if you're investing in this individual, becoming a better version of themselves, through a process that is demanding,
then
that's an excellent investment, as opposed to, I can't remember exactly how you said it in your bio, collateral damage in the pursuit of the American dream, right?
Yeah.
Related to that, I was talking with a friend this morning. We were talking about LeBron James, to use the basketball analogy, who's, I think, in his early 40s now and still performing at a very high level. Sometimes he's been criticized because he will sit out some games or take time to rest. It's probably because of that he's performing at such a high level still. I mean, I don't know the reasons why, but that principle that we have to take time for ourselves, we have to rest, is critical. Like even when you were talking about having the nightmares, right?
Yeah.
After you got laid off, you're sleeping and your brain isn't getting any rest.
None.
Right?
Yeah.
You literally wake up, like you said, and your sleep tracker says you've had 30 minutes of restful sleep that night, even though you lay in bed for 9 hours or whatever you did, right?
Yeah.
it's crazy. We need to give our minds a break. I think that's one of the reasons why burnout happens, is because people are just, like you said, bragging about the all-nighters, which maybe that's something to brag about as an entrepreneur. Probably not. Definitely not as a line level employee, right?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And like sometimes those all-nighters are appropriate. Like if you've been working on your business for a year and a half and you're going to go to a pitch where you're asking for millions of dollars, you know what? Maybe the preparation will justify the outcome. But what have you done before that to allow you the capacity to be sharp the next day for
Right.
it, or be sharp? Maybe it's the all-nighter the week before the meeting, right? But if you don't have some, it's like Dr. Covey had that emotional bank account analogy. I think health is the same way. Like we have
Yes.
to invest, because there are times we withdraw from that health account, but we've got to be depositing
Right.
into that as well. And so, yeah, there's appropriate times to do that. But if you're not putting in, like, eventually you just run dry.
Exactly. I love that analogy, and I've used that many times. Just this idea of emotional capital or emotional energy. It's a limited quantity, and it's something that
Yeah.
that will run out. Even if you replenish it, it's like physical energy. You have a certain amount, and at some point your body is exhausted and needs to rest, and it replenishes itself. The difference with emotional energy is that I don't know that it naturally replenishes itself. Maybe to a certain extent, we have to be more intentional about it. We have to look for opportunities and say, okay, what can I do today to take even just 10 minutes for myself, whatever I'm going to do. I had a friend who was saying, he says, yeah, I do that. I'll go sit in the hot tub for 30 minutes, but I have my phone with me and I'm answering emails. And I'm like, maybe just sit in the hot tub,
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
just leave your phone in the house and if you can't do 30, then do 15,
Well, I get it. Like I like to optimize what I'm doing. Like,
Sure.
how do I get more out of this one event? I get that, but at some point, you're right. You just have to I'm going to close my eyes, turn this off,
Yes.
and just, like Happy Gilmore says, go to my happy place,
Yes.
right? And just let everything else disappear.
Yeah. And there's time for that. I'm the same way. I'm an optimizer and I'm almost always multitasking, but there are times when I just long I'm thinking I would just love to sit in a padded chair and listen to one of my favorite albums beginning to end,
Oh yeah,
and do nothing else, do nothing else and just take that 45 minutes to do that. And I could do that. But then at the same time, I'm like, oh, but there's this that's undone and there's this that's undone. Bottom line is most of us, at least high performers, the list of things that is left undone is
endless.
huge. It's endless. Exactly. And you're never going to get to the end of it. So you may as well take some time, calculated breaks during the day just to say, okay. And like you talked about earlier, well, because you're the chair of the workplace chapter,
Yep.
the Silicon work health and wellness chapter, workplace health and wellness. So how do businesses do this? How are you going to help, like you said, help the employees grow instead of just becoming collateral damage?
I think there's signs that if managers and leaders know what to look for in day-to-day living, they can know who's at risk, right? So there are some things that we can't ask about, right? Hey, what did you talk to your psychologist about?
Right.
Right? What's your birth date? How old are you? Like, there's some things we can't ask, those HIPAA things, right? But there are some things that are tells where we know that if people are engaged in some activities, do X, Y happens, right? There's formulas, right? Like you drive 100 miles an hour, you're going to get somewhere faster, right? There's some things that improve our health and some things that take away from it. So as a manager, if I see that someone like, hey, how was your weekend? Oh, I just went to a movie. Oh, who'd you go with? Oh, just by myself. Okay, whatever.
Sure.
That by itself, not a big deal. But every weekend, that's it.
Right.
And then what do they come in for work? They've got like the 500-ounce soda that they got at Maverick, right? They drink that. And hey, what sports did you play in high school? Oh, I'm a gamer. So all of a sudden you see all these things where they don't get a lot of activity, physical movement.
Right.
Their diet's not good. They don't have a lot of social connection. There's 10 things that we can do that increases every level of health. Serving other people, taking time for mindfulness, learning new things, doing new things, knowing your purpose, time for mindfulness like prayer, meditation.
Right.
We can look out for those things. And if a lot of those things aren't happening, your employees are at risk of bad mental health, burnout, crashing, going somewhere else. If a few aren't happening, no big deal, right? But there's these 10 things that, hey, they're doing a lot of these things. That person's probably good. I should still ask, how are you doing? But if a lot of these things aren't happening regularly, it might be time for a one-to-one saying, hey, James, I've noticed that, a lot of people will have like an afternoon crash at 3:00, but yours is happening at 9:30.
Right.
And I've noticed these things too. I'm genuinely concerned for your health. We value you. We hired you because you're capable of so many things, but I'm seeing some patterns that are at risk. Would you mind, if you're not comfortable opening up to me, I want you to go see a therapist, because maybe there's nothing there, but sometimes we're just not taught how to deal with things. Will you do this?
Right.
And those things aren't under HIPAA. Having a social circle is not a HIPAA thing.
Right.
What people eat during lunch, at work is not a HIPAA thing. But all of these things impact our health.
Right.
And so it's knowing the signs to look for is something we can do.
Right. So the managers need to be just kind of ultra aware of those sort of things, in tune to those things, the types of things that they need to watch out for.
Yeah.
And then just to open the conversation, right? Because like you said, there are rules and laws about what can be asked, what can't be asked. But I think that a genuine interest in the well-being of your employee, even you just going to them and saying, hey, I've seen some things and I'm just concerned,
Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah.
How are you, And I think if you've developed a relationship with them as well, where they know that you care about them, then they will open up and they'll say, you know what, I've really been struggling. If they offer that information, that's great, right? Because they can offer that freely to anyone.
Right.
And then you help them explore options and say, oh, dang, well, you know what, that sounds like, this type of issue or something. Let's talk to HR. Let's see about, what options we have, with our EAP or with our health provider or whatever, and see what we can do. Because I think, and it's like you said back at the very beginning of the podcast, sometimes we just get stuck and we don't know what to do and we don't know what to say. And then, but if a well-intended individual that you trust opens that conversation, sometimes the floodgates open, right? And then they're willing to talk.
And starting the conversation is the hard part too. I think most people, just because you're a manager or leader, doesn't make you comfortable with hard conversations. Right. And asking someone about their health can feel hard and overwhelming. I'll never forget the first time I was at this event, and it was Mental Health Month. And we had like a booth up, and this guy, probably our age, walks by, but you can tell like his clothing, he was successful and stuff. He's kind of skeptically looking at things, and things like asking him how his health is. No idea who this guy is. I'm like, how's your mental health? And he's like, it's good. I'm like, okay, surface level. And I'm like, 1 out of 3 of us men think about suicide. Do you have someone you can talk to if you need it? And he just stood back. He was like, did this stranger really go here with me?
Right.
Like, he was just like,
very unexpected. Yeah.
And then he calmed down. And he's like, I do thank you. But, and then that moment I realized he doesn't get mad at me.
No.
He was shocked. He was surprised. Like, wow, this guy he went like 5 levels deep on a hello, how are
from
you?
A booth, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, from a how are you to like, but he wasn't mad.
Right.
So sometimes it's just the first time you ask that question. And sometimes it's, I don't know how to do this, so I need the courage to talk about my own.
Right. And you caused him to think too, right? Because that second answer you got from him was a thoughtful response.
Very thoughtful.
Right? Because he thought about it, and he knew, and you knew that he did have someone. You thought, I do have someone that I could do that. But yeah, that caused his level of thinking to go 5 layers deep almost immediately, just because you were courageous enough to go there.
He was there to watch a rugby game. not tell me about his mom.
Exactly. But I think there is so much power, and in business settings, obviously there's things we can say and we can't say, but friend to friend, there's no limits, right? And I think having those, being courageous enough to, if there's someone you're concerned about, just to go to them and say, really, how are you?
Yeah.
And maybe keep probing appropriately until you get that level 5 response, right?
Yeah.
Until you get that deep response.
And there's our own observations too. So like for me, one of my jobs after that one layoff, in public group settings, I was very active. engaged. But when my boss would say, "Hey, James, can you come to my office and talk for a minute?" my anxiety would spike because I'm thinking, here we go.
Right.
I'm going to get laid off. And so 1-to-1, I was very closed because I didn't know what was going on. If he was trained and taught to notice the differences with me in group settings versus 1-to-1s, he could have said, "James, I noticed that when we're as a team, you're sharing all your opinions and ideas and we love them. But when I want you to come in 1-to-1, it's almost like you're a different person." So that's an observation.
Right. Right.
I'm not here to like call you out or write you up for anything. I just want you to know, like, even when we're 1-to-1, I value your input and you're not going anywhere. Or is this, have you had an experience in the past, or what is it about the 1-to-1s that make you uncomfortable? Or am I just reading this all wrong?
Yeah.
Now, I probably would have said, "You're reading this wrong. I'm good." But I also would have known.
But you would have known.
Dale cared enough to
Yes.
bring this up.
Exactly.
He actually does value me. And that statement that communicated that he valued me probably would have changed how I felt going into the next one.
Even though you may have given a surface response in that, there was a part of you that understood where he was coming from, and you felt that value.
Right.
And that'll be part of, that'll have an effect in your mind and in your
So
heart.
it changes the narrative that I feel that, okay, when he calls me in, he actually just wants to talk.
Right. Right.
Versus the narrative that I've been conditioned for was, I'm screwed.
I'm going to get fired. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, James, thank you so much for talking today, for sharing your insights. If people want to know more about what you do, is there a website they can go to
Just connect with me on LinkedIn.
find them on LinkedIn? James Keddington
or
on
join our
LinkedIn.
chapter and just come out to events.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thank you very much. I appreciate your honesty and your insights as well. And I hope that a lot of managers are listening to this, because it's good information for them.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks everyone for listening today. Remember that change starts with you, and together we can increase our mental health momentum.